sound like just another fun K-pop song, but it's actually the newest anthem for Shark Week. It's a week of action-packed shows on the Discovery Channel that are meant to entertain and educate viewers on the misunderstood ocean predators.
It's kind of catchy.
I like it.
Yeah, so here to have some fantastic fun with us during Shark Week is Florida Aquarium. He's known as the shark guy, Eric Hovland. Welcome.
Hey, good morning.
What do you think of that song? Have you heard it yet?
I feel like it's going to be my new earworm. So, yeah, looking forward to it.
It's true. We have some,
Yes.
stuff we're going to talk about in a second. But some stuff. I was going to say jaw. Is that right?
Well, they are jaws.
Okay, good. I was going to say it, but
I don't think the word's patented.
Right.
jaw.
We can
That's
say
true.
it.
Trademark pending.
But when Shark Week is so important because we're talking about how important they actually are in our community. So just talk about that importance and how it really makes our ecosystems thrive.
Absolutely. It's all about a balance of, look at our coral reefs. What would our coral reefs be without sharks? Sharks are there to help manage that population. They do it by eating some of them. The fish, the sea creatures, the older ones, they help keep those populations healthy, help keep them in balance. Without the sharks, you pull them away, some of the other little predators might eat all of the fish that are really good at maintaining the reef, that eat the algae and all. And then that algae overtakes the reef and the whole thing just falls apart. So we need sharks to maintain coral reefs. We need coral reefs to maintain sharks. It's where they live. It's where they find their groceries. It's where we go fishing and scuba diving. Personally, it's one of my favorite places to be underwater.
Yeah.
And it's better with sharks.
Better with sharks. Well, talk about it's important too that we know about sharks and that we protect them. Are they endangered and what's their status right now?
Absolutely. About a third of shark species are endangered to critically endangered. And this is all around the world. This is in our Florida waters too. We do a pretty good job and actually we're leaders in managing and maintaining healthy populations of sharks. And we want to keep it that way. We don't want changes to the Endangered Species Act. We want to maintain healthy fishing practices and healthy commercial fishing practices. And I think we're a leader for that for the rest of the world. And that's something that you can do too to help protect these shark populations is, know where your seafood comes from. We're in Florida. We should know where our seafood comes from.
Right.
Ideally, it should come from Florida.
Yeah.
And that's something you can ask of your restaurants. Is this local? If it's local, then we're taking into account the health of the whole ecosystem. And it may come from halfway across the planet where they have different regulations and rules.
Yeah.
So think about where your food comes from and share our oceans with sharks.
All right, and to think about being in Florida, what's a danger to some of the sharks that we have here in the Gulf?
Sure. Well, right now, the Gulf is changing. The temperatures are changing. We are, and I say this not just for the sharks, but for all the marine life. We work with corals at the Florida Aquarium and sea turtles and sharks, just a whole wealth of animals. They're all affected by these changing temperatures. We're looking at an El Nino. It's going to get hot again. It's going to get hotter. But what we can do there is, again, what can we do to lower that carbon footprint? Think about where you spend your time, invest in Florida, come to see our beaches, share the water with them. All of that helps us build an economy that's enhanced by healthy oceans and healthy reefs and sharks. So just really focusing on that food and where we're traveling.
Yeah. Okay, well, talk about what you have here, because this is a pretty big jaw.
Speaking of sharks,
what kind is that?
Really big set of jaws with teeny tiny teeth. You can barely see the teeth. They're more like rows of a comb. That's the biggest shark, the biggest fish you'll ever see is a whale shark. And these are the jaws. This is a model of a whale shark's jaws. They filter feed, much like a whale, like a baleen whale would do. They're swimming through the ocean, open that big mouth, and filter out some of the tiniest food in the ocean. So big shark, tiny food, big appetite.
Big shark, big jaw.
Are any of these that you have here in our area, in the Gulf?
No, you can see whale sharks out in the Gulf. You'll hear about fishermen that go maybe just an hour offshore, and you're lucky if you see a big spotted dorsal fin, and you look down into the water, it looks like a constellation swimming by. They're very spotted and kind of a checkerboard pattern on these big sharks that, we're seeing out in the Gulf. And that's a circumtropical shark. You can find them kind of like all around the tropical seas of the world. Now, these are sharks, too. This is the jaws of a goblin shark. And you might see recently there's been some video of an actual goblin shark. They don't swim with their mouth open like that.
Shark. Okay.
Yeah, well, you have to be a little bit more of a shark nerd. But shark nerds know. But this shark has a long rostrum and quite a set of pointy teeth. They're deep water sharks, so you wouldn't encounter them. If they are off our coast, they would be thousands of feet down. We have gotten some recent video. You can Google it on up, of course. And it's a really unique, interesting looking shark, but long, skinny teeth are good for grabbing. Think of them like your silverware set. You might have a spoon and a knife and forks. So they're good for just grabbing smaller prey items and swallowing them on down.
Interesting.
On the other hand, here you've got a Port Jackson shark. We have a similar shark
cute.
on
That's
the,
a cute
West
little
Coast.
shark.
It
I like
is,
that
and they're
one.
a smaller shark. Their teeth are kind of like our molars.
Yeah.
And what are molars good for? They're for crunching down the solid stuff. In this case, those sharks are benthic. That is, they live on the bottom. They can still pump water to breathe, and then they can crunch down on mollusks or crustaceans, things with a hard shell.
Now, nurse sharks are here in our area, right?
Yes, they are. And you know what's neat about nurse sharks? One of their closest relatives is whale sharks.
Okay.
If you take a nurse shark, make it really big, and stretch those jaws out a little bit, they have also very similar small teeth, but they're in that same family of those carpet sharks. And yeah, we have nurse sharks on off our coastal regions down in the reefs, and we have about a dozen species of sharks, from nurse sharks to all the way up to great whites will even be pinging off of our coast sometimes. And I say pinging because they do tag them and mark them. You can follow them on various
So we have a couple that
apps.
we're going to run through. We don't have to go super quick, but kind of. So Caribbean sharks.
Caribbean reef sharks. Yeah, you can find them, once again, especially down in our Florida Keys reefs that they make their home.
All right, and thresher.
Thresher shark, you'd be lucky to see one of those with a long, slender tail. But they are, again, a lot of these sharks do come into the coastal waters.
All right, and then hammerheads.
Hammerheads have a couple different varieties. Little pumpkin-sized ones called the bonnethead sharks.
Okay.
And then you have scalloped and great hammerhead sharks, too, that can also make their way into our waters. And we do get... there's some excellent drone video. Who wouldn't love that face?
Yeah, no. And then great whites, you just mentioned that that's possible.
Yep, especially in the cooler months. They can kind of be, the younger ones might move through just looking for a fish dinner.
Those are the ones that we are a little scared of, but don't be.
Yes.
Well, the first time I saw a great white diving off of Guadalupe Island, which you can see on Discovery Channel shows all the time, swam about as close to me as you. Now you have to be in a cage.
Right.
Big brown eye, not just a big black movie monster eye. And I mean, I got a little choked up. Her name was Lucy.
Oh.
She was huge.
Wow.
18
Just
feet.
something like that can change your
I know.
perspective, right?
Yes.
It does.
Yeah, this is very
Seeing
helpful.
them and understanding them, you can take that fear to fascination.
Yeah. Well, thank you so
Absolutely.
much for being here and helping us do that.
Always a pleasure. Yeah, happy Shark Week.
Yes.
Hey, and if you want to come down to see something really exciting, come to the Florida Aquarium, hop in the water with ours. Come the cooler months, come down to Apollo Beach. Best kept secret, our Turtle Rescue Center. But if you go out to the Manatee Viewing Center, they're adjacent.
Yeah.
You can walk out on the pier, one of the best places to see sharks.
Oh,
Amazing.
good to know.
All
Perfect.
winter long.
Yes.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.